Hi guys, it's Missy from the Book Rat, and today I want to take a look at my favorite type of reading when it comes to this time of year, and that is atmospheric reads. So I know a lot of people tend to reach for like the creepy books, your witches and vampires and werewolves and zombies and things like that this time of year, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like that too. But what I tend to crave the most, and what seems to fit, I guess, the best for me in October especially, but in fall in general, is things that are just atmospheric. They just have a vibe. Now, atmospheric can mean anything to anyone. I mean, it's just something that you feel. It just feels right to you. So your atmospheric will be different than my atmospheric. And it's something that you can't really pin down completely. I mean, it just is. You just know it when you see it or feel it or read it or whatever. So it's kind of hard to say what it is that unites these, but they have a presence to them. So whether it's in the characters or the world or the story, all of the little details that go in, the setting and eating and drinking and things like that that make something feel more real, that all contributes to something being atmospheric. But it's in the language and the way that it's written and sort of the cadence. I think a lot of times if it has a storyteller feel, a kind of around the campfire feel, that is a big part of what makes something atmospheric. But I mean, you just don't know until you sit down with it and you're like, I feel this book, I feel it around me, I feel more immersed in it, I feel a little more transported. To me, that makes for an atmospheric read. So today I'm going to share 6 examples of some good atmospheric reads for this time of year, but I have plenty more and other more traditional October reads, so I'm thinking about doing a companion video to this, and if you would like to see that with some more recommendations for sort of October fall reading, let me know in the comments. But without further ado, here are the 6 books. They will all be linked and listed in the description so you can find out more about them, and here we go. Probably the first thing I think of whenever I think of atmospheric books, and I don't know how I don't own a copy of this. I talk about it all the time. I love it a whole lot. I really should own a copy. But that is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. It's very short. It's more of a novella than a novel, and it is just packed full of just kind of get under your skin, something is off about this atmosphere. It is so perfect for this time of year, I can't even begin to describe. It is just a fall read. It just is. It has some disturbing elements to help kind of tie it in, but it's really not a book about, I mean, it is a book about disturbing elements, don't get me wrong, but it's not, a shock and awe or ghost story or something like that that would make you think of it when it comes to October reading. But I think once you've read it, you're like, yeah, totally an October read. I mean, good any time of the year because it's fantastic, but there is just something about it that screams autumn atmosphere. Right up there with that, when I think of atmospheric books, and one of the first kind of go-to ones that I talk about when I'm recommending more recent books to people, is The Accident Season by Maura Fowley Doyle. This is, I mean, the utmost. I know we've talked about this book a lot before, especially because I count it among those books that I love that other people call slow, and I'm like, what? And I think that might be part of atmospheric, at least for me. Things that take their time to kind of build, they build that tension and they build that sense of maybe unease or something about them, rather than just kind of rushing you through like an adventure novel or something. And I think that kind of puts some readers off. Some people want that boom, 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 here we go, like non-stop action thing, but that's not really atmospheric. There's no time to build any kind of sense of something around you because you're constantly shattering it with the next little like twist and turn. So I can understand why people would find that slow, and maybe if you do, these atmospheric reads aren't necessarily for you, though I still recommend trying them, especially this time of year. But this one, for me, just hits the nail on the head when it comes to atmosphere. I just felt every little bit of it, from the language and the characters, the setting, the world that's being built, the kind of backstory and the questions and mystery. All of it lends itself to a book that you really feel around you. You feel it building around you, and that is just, couldn't ask for more. It also does have elements that make it fit in with a kind of traditional read for this time of year, but I'm not going to get into that because that's a spoiler. Next we have The Replacement by Brenna Yavanoff. Though I think all of her books would fit in with the kind of atmospheric, heading and would all be great reads for this time of year, especially The Space Between, which might be my favorite. This, her first book, I think most embodies the idea of atmospheric. It's full. It feels fully realized. It feels like you can feel it on your skin, you know? It's got that little bit of creep and oddity and weirdness that really suits this time of year. You feel plunged into it, the characters feel like they're plunged into it, and it just really has all the bells and whistles of what I would consider atmospheric, carried off really well. If you want something that's not at all really on the creepy end of things, but still just has that autumnal atmospheric feel to it, or at least in my opinion, I have two recommendations for you. One is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor. Again, this has that evocative writing, very lyrical, and just kind of sticks to you, you know? It also has really interesting, fully realized world building. You can really just picture, you can feel like you're being transported. You've got multiple sides to the story to kind of lead you along this path, and it just, everything about it and everything about her writing in general, I think, tends to be very atmospheric and also feels slightly autumnal to me, no matter what time of year I'm reading it, but I think it feels more immersive if I'm reading something like this in the fall. And the next is The Lost by Sarah Beth Durst. I would almost consider this a summer read. It really does feel more of a summer book, and I think it kind of is more of a summer book, except that it also fits the bill for those atmospheric reads that I love to just fall into when the days are getting colder and shorter and you just want to curl up with a book. It is transportative, it has all of these interesting characters, and this little bit of what is going on here exactly that kind of suits the mystery side of your brain at this time of year. Because it feels more summery, it's maybe a little lighter, a little easier to ease into as far as atmospheric goes for the rest of you, although it is, I think, a book that some people maybe will struggle with as far as absorbing and understanding it. So just putting that out there. You might have to be patient with it or kind of dwell on it a little bit, but I think that is also sometimes the hallmark of a good atmospheric book, and it's something that stays with you, it lingers, and that is like a sure sign that something just nailed that sort of atmospheric vibe, and this really lingered with me. How many years later are we? This came out in 2014, so this one has been creeping into a little corner in my brain for like 4 years now, so that's always a good sign. And the last one isn't a straight recommendation because I didn't necessarily love this book, although I think it is absolutely a perfect type of book for this time of year, and that is Blood and Salt, or Anything Else by Kim Liggett, and probably a bunch of other authors and similar stories and books. Things that you read through, and they're not going to be favorites, they're not going to be things that stick with you forever. You might even have major pet peeves. There were flaws in this and in, oh, what's the other one, The Harvest or something, Last Harvest. There are things that kind of stick with you and stand out as like serious irritations in both of those books for me, but I don't think you could get any more fall, atmospheric, sense of foreboding-ishness than either one of Kim's books. It's a bit indescribable. I mean, there are things about it that certainly would lend itself to this time of year. There are kind of magical, culty, bloody aspects of it that obviously are going to fall right in line with an October read. But beyond that, when you start reading it, it just feels like it's meant to be read in October. It just does. It just is an October read, and that's all there is to it. So there you have it. Those are some recommendations for autumnal atmospheric reads that I think you might enjoy, or at least kind of starting points for sort of non-traditional, non-Halloween-y books to read around Halloween that just kind of give you fall vibes. As I said, there are plenty of other things that I tend to reach for in these months, in sort of September, October, November, that just feel right somehow, that aren't necessarily books that I would categorize as atmospheric, but there's something else about them that just is a fall read to me. So if you would like to see a video on those sort of styles of books, and some more traditionally creepy or Halloween-y books, let me know that in the comments, because I'm mulling it over in my brain and I've got some suggestions. But that's all for now. Let me know your suggestions for atmospheric reads in the comments, because of course I always want more of them, always. And I do have more on my list, so we could even have a part 2 or continuation of the actual atmospheric reads. I even have things that I consider more spring atmospheric and summer atmospheric, which is why The Lost almost didn't end up in this stack. So that's just, my brain categorizes things down to the weirdest little minute detail. which is why I would love to know your suggestions so I have more things to add to my categories. But that is all for now. Looking forward to chatting with you in the comments and hearing about your autumn reads or what you're drawn to in kind of a fall selection of books. But until next time, thank you guys for watching and happy reading!